Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Climate Dispatch. I'm Dan Fingus, the Executive Director of Vermont Conservation Voters. I am here with Ben Edgerly Walsh from VPIRG, who is here to join me to talk all about crossover. Crossover is the halfway point of the legislative session. We are currently finishing up week 8 of the legislative session, and the session is usually 18 weeks long, which means we're only one session week away from the halfway point. All the legislators are going to take next week off for town meeting day. So then week 9 is actually the week after, the week of March 9th. And by the end of that week, all policy bills need to be through their first chamber. So if they started in the House, they need to be moved into the Senate. If they started in the Senate, they need to be moved into the House. So we're getting to a really crucial time to make sure that our bills and the things that we care about make it through the first half of session. So we're going to do a little recap. First, let's talk about a few things we've already told you about that have already moved from one chamber to the other. Ben, do you want to talk a little bit about portable solar and single plant?
Absolutely. So we're talking about very small solar, micro solar you might almost call it, and then some of the larger solar that's being built in Vermont and making both of those things easier. So the portable solar bill, S202, that one is about making it much easier, really enabling Vermonters to take plug-in solar arrays that they can plug right into an exterior power outlet and have solar much more quickly than a typical rooftop or backyard array. Really, this bill just cuts all the red tape. Makes this possible. Vermont would become the second state in the country behind Utah to enable this, although we're seeing a lot of interest in other states, New York, Pennsylvania, many others. And then the other bill, which is H710, the single plant bill, that cut some red tape as well, but for much larger solar, where the plug-in solar is 1, 2, 3 panels you'd put on your patio or on your balcony. This is up to 5 megawatt solar. That would be about 25 acres. And essentially what this bill does is it makes it easier for these projects to be co-located where there's a good area. We've heard stories about solar projects being built in a gravel pit, and just because of bureaucratic red tape and a sort of outdated definition, they have to build an extra road, extra poles and wires that are really not necessary for the plant, drive up the cost for everyone, including ratepayers. And this would eliminate that and allow those to be built next to each other when it makes sense.
Great. Well, so that's one Senate bill and one House bill that have both made it through the first chamber, which is exciting. That means they have a really good chance of making it all the way to the finish line this year. Let's talk about some bills that are still waiting to make it through that first chamber. H727, the data center siting bill.
Yeah. So this is a bill I actually testified on this morning. This is a bill that's in-house energy right now. They expect, I think, to move it out before crossover, which is great. And it takes this issue of data centers, which we've been hearing a lot more about as they've been driving up electric rates across the country, and put some much more stringent regulations on them than currently exist. So the committee's still figuring out exactly what this looks like, but our hope is this bill would require a lot of renewable energy to be used by these systems, that it would require things like on-site energy storage, so they're not driving up peak demand and driving up everyone's rates. Really this is about protecting consumers, protecting the environment, and I know VNRC is doing some good work on this on the waterfront as well, although that is outside of my area of expertise.
You don't know everything?
So we're hoping this bill moves. Really with data centers, our goal is to get some serious regulations in place. There's talk of a moratorium. I frankly think that's very unlikely in this political environment. And in lieu of that, something like what's being contemplated in H727 makes a ton of sense.
All right, we've talked a lot already about greenhouse gas reporting bill H740. I think everyone probably knows what that bill is and the need for funding in this year's budget. I believe $500,000 is the amount that we need. That is still waiting to pass it to the House floor, correct?
Yeah, so we're hearing that it's going to pass out any day now. That's also in House Energy. And it would strengthen greenhouse gas reporting so that we can do a better job managing our greenhouse gases here in Vermont. So the hope is that gets to the Senate in advance of crossover. And yeah, the main thing here is the money. We think we have support for the policy, but after it goes out of House Energy, it's going to have to go to House Appropriations, and they're going to have some hard decisions to make. So if one of your reps is on that committee, talking to them about this would make a lot of sense.
Great. And then the last House bill that we're kind of tracking, I think, is the Appliance Efficiency Bill, H600. I think there's a Senate bill version, S191.
Yep.
Where are we at with that?
Yeah, so very briefly, this would take federal appliance efficiency standards. This is sort of like the minimum floor for efficiency. If a product's less efficient than these standards, it is not allowed to be sold in the US. Trump, of course, is trying to gut these standards wholesale. And so what we're trying to do is the same thing we did in 2017, adopt them here in Vermont. So if they ever go at the federal level, we are still protected here in Vermont. Basically, this bill would update these standards to be the standards passed by the Biden administration. Right now, we only have the Obama era standards in place. So there's a couple of bills in play. I don't know if either of them are going to move before crossover, but that is not the end of the story. We still are very optimistic that one of these bills could be attached to another piece of legislation and become law this year, even though it might not technically meet that crossover deadline.
All right, and the last thing, unfortunately, those are 5 great bills that we just talked about that we're moving forward on energy efficiency, moving forward on helping ratepayers, moving forward to make sure we have more renewable energy. We also have to play some defense sometimes. So I know in the Senate Agriculture Committee, there's the Miscellaneous Agriculture Bill, S323, and it's got a lovely section on solar and farms where they're, I think, trying to stop us from being able to build solar in big ways. Do you want to talk about that bill?
Yeah, also something I testified on this week. That one would require all solar built in the state of Vermont to have a significant and probably pretty expensive assessment of its life cycle greenhouse gas emissions, its energy payback period. You know, that's good stuff, but we know that solar is good. Some is great, some is absolutely amazing, and some is pretty good, but it's all exponentially better than something like gas, which we'd be using otherwise. So driving up the cost, even of rooftop solar, backyard solar, just to find out what we already know over and over again, site by site, doesn't make any sense to us. It would also essentially ban solar above 1 megawatt. And when we're talking about meeting our renewable energy requirements, really reducing greenhouse gas pollution, having some solar in the mix that is a little bit bigger, that is able to bring some of those economies of scale and bring much more affordable renewable energy online makes a lot of sense. This would essentially make that impossible. The good news is we don't think this is passing. They're going to consider it again, I think, tomorrow morning in Senate Agriculture, but we're very optimistic we're going to be able to stop this. And I'll just also note briefly, there's a lot of other bad legislation that's been proposed, H601 and a number of others that would make, blow apart our restrictions around nuclear energy and nuclear waste and repeal the renewable energy standard and all sorts of other things. None of those are moving. We will absolutely let you know if it looks like any of them is getting traction, but right now we're feeling very good about holding the line on all those.
That's really great. Well, appreciate your time today. You probably just heard a lot of numbers, 727, 740, 323, so many. All of those bills are going to be linked in the email, so you can click on them, figure out what's going on. At any time you have questions or want to get more involved on these bills, please reach out to us by email. Jack from VNRC or myself would be happy to talk with you about getting more involved. We are going into town meeting week, so the call to action this week is go vote. Whether you vote by Australian ballot and can just fill out the ballot, or whether you actually go to a town meeting like I do in Plainfield and actually spend 3 or 4 hours talking about issues of the community, make sure you get out and vote and spend that time. We're going to take next week off since there is no legislative session, but we'll be back the week of March 9th for another climate dispatch and let you know what made the finish line and what didn't for crossover. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you.